year will construction begin? Will construction begin on a new pipeline to the Pacific?
The world is changing rapidly. The United States, the world's largest economy, is fundamentally...
In what decade will construction begin on a new pipeline to the Pacific?
If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth.
Yesterday from the Prime Minister really freaked these Conservatives out because they saw the ambition in that speech. And not only did they see it in that speech today, as the Prime Minister stood with the
Speaker, we will take no lessons from these Conservatives. Trust me on that.
They know that the youth...
The only thing that's revolting are those answers.
It is too bad that minister didn't write the Prime Minister's speech yesterday, because it wouldn't have bored and depressed to tears all of those poor students stuck in that room. There he spoke about how they would have to sacrifice more and that it would take time to reverse all of the misery that is built up over the last 10 years. Mr. Speaker, young people want to have homes. They want to have jobs. They want to have hope. They want a budget that is affordable so they can have a life that is affordable. Will the Prime Minister introduce that budget so that Canadians can restore the promise of their country?
And we decide what comes next.
Canada know that this government has their back. It will continue. There's going to be a powerful statement for the young people of Canada.
Driving inflation. The more Liberals spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. 25% of Canadians are using food banks because they can't afford to eat. So when will the Prime Minister finally get his inflationary deficits under control so Canadians can put food on the table?
Mr. Speaker, Conservative members pretend to care about food insecurity, but then they call feeding children garbage.
Mr. Speaker, what's garbage was that answer?
Did the Prime Minister see the ad before it went out?
Of course there are too many people living in poverty in Canada, but there are significant initiatives being put in place by this government.
Being serious means being honest and telling Canadians.
Canada's economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
In what year will construction begin on a new pipeline to the Pacific?
The Honourable Governor Halsey.
Mr. Speaker, the world is changing rapidly. The United States, the world's largest economy, is fundamentally reshaping all of its trade relationships, causing major disruption and upheaval for Canadians. It's time to transform our economy from one that is reliant on a single trading partner to one that is stronger, more self-sufficient, and resilient to global shocks. To these ends, Canada and Alberta share the same ambitions. Diversify our export markets, make Canada an energy superpower, and build a stronger, cleaner, more independent, more competitive economy.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
All right, he can't tell us the year in which construction will begin. Can he tell us in what decade will construction begin on a new pipeline to the Pacific?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, today is a really important day because we are taking important steps forward on cooperative federalism. The Prime Minister has been clear, and we've always known, we cannot reach our climate objectives if we are not working with all of the provinces and territories. Today, Alberta has committed to work with us on clean electricity regulations. They've committed in this agreement to work towards a stronger industrial carbon price. They have committed to work with us on methane regulations. Those are important steps forward for Canada to move towards its climate objectives, and we will keep doing that work.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
So they don't know the year that construction will begin. They don't know the decade that construction will begin. And the Environment Minister couldn't even bring herself to utter the word pipeline in her answer to the question. And what today's deal allows a proposal for a pipeline to go to an office in 7 months, which will then be studied for 2 years, after which the Prime Minister will give a pipeline veto to the BC NDP Premier, who's already said he's against. Isn't this pipeline going to be built in the year never?
Actually, Mr. Speaker, this is a big, large, great, grand day for Canada. Our government has reached an important MOU with Danielle Smith, the Premier, and the province of Alberta that creates an energy transition in all aspects of energy. It sets the stage for an industrial transformation. It will make Canada stronger, more independent, more resilient, and more sustainable, and it will include the largest carbon capture project in the world. It will mean all of Alberta's energy resources are among the lowest energy intensive in the world.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Don't tell us when a pipeline will be under construction. Let's just unpack the Prime Minister's allusion here. He's telling the Keep It in the Ground caucus of the Liberal Party that they just need to be quiet because there won't be a pipeline anyway. What he will do is delay it for several years until after a prospective election during which he can dangle a possible pipeline in front of the people, but after which he can hand veto power that is not in the Constitution over to the BC NDP Premier, who will block the thing from ever happening. Isn't it true that this isn't a pipeline? It's a pipe dream.
The Honourable Governor Halsey.
Mr. Speaker, the country, indeed the world, is calling out for serious leadership, for cooperative leadership, for leadership that brings people together and parties together. I don't think this leader has any conception of what is required to do the kind of development that he is proposing. Of course we will consult and deal with the Premier, the duly elected Premier of British Columbia. Of course we will, and have a duty to consult with First Nations. Of course we will do this in a cooperative way. We'll do it in the Canadian way, and we'll do it in the right way, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, they will stand in the way, is what they will do. We know that the only thing stopping a pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific is the Prime Minister. Let's unpack attack the legality of it. The Constitution, Section 9210A, gives the federal government exclusive approval power for a pipeline. Bill C-5, a bill the Prime Minister pushed through the House of Commons, and we even supported him, gives him the power to approve it. So we only need him to do one thing for this pipeline to happen. Get out of the way. Will he do it?
Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, when Canadians elected our government, they were clear. They wanted to see us build a strong Canada, and they wanted to see us build it well and build it together. They wanted to see that we could work together as a country, and that means that we do things like this agreement with Alberta that helps us move forward on industrial carbon pricing, moves forward on methane regulation, moves forward on clean electricity, but also respects other jurisdictions like the province of British Columbia, with which we must seek agreement.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, she accidentally told the truth, Mr. Speaker. She didn't say that it moves forward on a pipeline. She said it moves forward on an industrial carbon tax. A carbon tax that will increase the cost of everything it takes to build a home, so it's a tax on homes. On everything it takes to grow food, so it's a tax on food. It's a tax that drives production out, paychecks down, and the cost of living up. Meanwhile, it does not move forward with a pipeline. We as Conservatives believe in clearing the way to get pipelines built. In other words, we would build a pipeline without a carbon tax. They would build a carbon tax without a pipeline.
Honourable Government House Leader.
Again, Mr. Speaker, I suspect Canadians are straining to find the Leader of the Opposition credible on any of this. What this Memorandum of Understanding does is create a carbon capture and storage system that will lead the world. It will include, of course, bringing together of partners with whom we have a duty to consult and with other jurisdictions. It will create jobs in the electrical system. It will create construction jobs. It will create opportunity across Western Canada, Mr. Speaker, but most importantly will make Canada an energy superpower. Why can't the Leader of the Opposition see that?
Welcome to the NAP, the no answer period, where we cover the question period, prefaced by a review of the far left evil that has beset our land and the events that surround it. Yes, the NAP precedes the question period by about 45 minutes, and we'll cover the lower house until the government just stops showing up. We also keep score during the question period, and there's a description down below on how we do that. We are streaming on 3 platforms, Rumble, X, and YouTube. We were having some extreme issues with Blazing Catfur, which was at 9 o'clock for our weekly Blazing Catfur Fridays, where we cover his website and we do a cold read-through of current events, some of which are current events that are reflected here. I'd like to thank all my followers and subscribers for doing so. And if you're new, please give us a like, thumbs up, share, subscribe, all that jazz. The chat is up, so please feel free to ask anything. And comments drive the algorithm up. So if you're watching this on repeat, please throw in a comment. You will get an answer. Those comments drive the algorithm when I am not driving it down with my words. So we just saw there at the ending of the intro, for the last 2/3 of the intro, which is basically just a big review of what was happening in the House of Commons yesterday, as the exchange between the House Leader of the Conservative government pretty well hammered the Liberals into submission, and it's rather interesting to see how all of them just look like they they lost their favorite animal. Yesterday's question period is quite the somber event. The typical excitable boisterousness and self-confidence that we continually see from them, their continual gaslighting from the Liberal Party, just didn't seem to have the same oomph. I don't know if it's just like they all looked like they were reading from a script, or of course they all have the same script when they have answers anyway, right? Because they just recycle the same non-answers. In the caucus rebellion between the far-left fanatical green meanies who would rather have Canadians starve and be carbon taxed to death, and those who are actual liberals realizing that the party has too many crazy ideological, socially disconnected, useful idiots in it, or is it maybe the realization that their party leader, Prime Minister Carney, has been abusing his office to make himself and his friends at Brookfield rich? Maybe that's why they all look like their favorite dog died in Parliament yesterday. There was a very low energy from those Liberals yesterday. Every single one of them having the absence of vigor they usually perform as they repeat the same non-answers and never actually answered any questions, as usual. That's pretty well usual for them. And they can't answer those questions, right? Lest they either lie or tell the truth, but it's easier for them to lie because they can't be held accountable in the lower house. So many of them just repeat the script that their office uses, or the slogans, right? They'll use slogans to paint the opposition as anti-Canadian, accusing them of using slogans while using slogans themselves. It's quite the show. If you've never seen it, question period that is, it's become quite the joke under the Liberal government, acting like petulant teenagers and abusing their ministerial office to never respond to the concerns of the rest of Canada. Hardly ever. If you will see as we track the answers, they're mostly naps, no answers, period. Right? The obfuscation and the refusal through repetition of the same mantras all the time. Canadians elected us. Canadians elected us. Canadians chose us. Conservatives voted against Canadians in the last election. Every time they bring up a bill that they're not following, right? So you just insert your typical liberal authoritarian bill right here when they say, but Canadians voted against C9 and they want children to be harmed online. Well, no, it's not. That's not it at all, you morons. Or casting their literal trump card by spewing MAGA as a label for anything that embarrasses the failures of their expensive policies, whether it be immigration or migration, I should say, trade, or the absence of elbows up trade negotiations, we should say. Who cares? Or pointing out every Brookfield link self-enrichment by the Prime Minister and former CEO of Brookfield, Mark J. Carney, who still owns a massive financial portfolio tied to multiple companies, all of which are profiting from Carney's decision and actions and leadership of the party, especially that big announcement in the MOU, that whole carbon capture scheme. It's going to be the biggest carbon capture scam on the planet. I mean, scheme on the planet. Yeah, for sure. It's because everyone else has realized it's a bloody scam and nobody else is investing in this because it's all built on carbon credits, right? So you impose this massive penalizing, stupid industrial carbon tax, right? And then the only way to get out of it is to get yourself some credits. And in order to get the credits, you got to buy into the scam. And then, of course, in order for you as a citizen to be able to use those credits, oh, well, then that's when they bring in digital ID, right? And they control every single thing that you use throughout your life, how much energy you consume, and that'll give you your carbon cost, right? So they're no longer treating you like citizens, they're treating you like carbon credits. As an unseasoned politician, Mark Carney's arrogance of his own success has demonstrated his boardroom ruthlessness in the wrong theater of operations. As an elected public servant, he never learned the first rule. As an unelected public servant, or as an elected public servant, they should really learn this first rule, right? Make people like you. And if you're unlikable, don't be evasive because that just makes you more unlikable. If voters like you, they will forgive you. But if someone like Carney is only likable because they insist the other guy's a dick, a Richard by any other name, or a QCJO media propagated Orwellian label of the day, right, which seems to be MAGA or Trump, well, the problem with that is obvious. Unless, of course, it's not a problem, but an operating strategy. Right? The operating strategy the Liberals maintain currently uses the same fear-based reaction triggers that got Carney elected. That's why they're constantly, when they're talking, right? Oh, we live in a dangerous world. It's a changing, dangerous world. Right? They're always like putting in this, oh, it's a dangerous, you gotta be careful, right? You can't trust the opposition. They can't deal with the danger like we can. They're not safe. If you want to know the direction of the next fear porn trigger, just listen to the QCJO press and what they're repeating as a reaction to specific topics. But as the QCJO market shares shrink regardless of these subsidies, the Liberal Party's next move has been through legislation to control the uncontrollable, the independent social media. They can feel this power within their grasp, but they do not have full control yet. Their minority government caucus is fracturing. This is evident by the recent internationally fiscally beneficial appointments by some members, or by impending foreign affairs appointments. That's right, as the caucus starts to fracture, they're going to be given their little cushy jobs. Or perhaps removal due to outright incompetence. Looking at Philip Champagne's signature on the original Stellantis contract, one can imagine on that side of the house, he is a lawyer, after all. All that to say is that the Liberals are going to need to pivot very shortly in their messaging, because their fear-based messaging is running thin. Is running thin in an economy that we called it socialists, especially national socialists like the Liberal Party have become in their authoritarian way, are more concerned with ideology, feeding the ideological train, which in this case is mostly Mark Carney's Brookfield friends, gazed under, hidden under the auspices of green stuff. That's the only thing they're going to push is that ideology, and by doing that, they're just going to continue to anger Canadians that are going to look at their empty pockets and say, "Yeah, it's great for you to be a green meanie, but you're doing it at my expense." Ta-da! Warned you. What do you think the carbon tax is for? You are the carbon they want to eliminate. And now this new MOU with Alberta, well, yeah, like I said yesterday, caught between a rock and a hard place in 10 years of liberal insanity when it comes to economy not allowing the province to develop anything. Yeah, she'll grasp at any straws. Okay, sure, I'll sign on to increasing the carbon tax, which they lost in court because they were trying to do their own carbon tax. So I said, well, if we're stuck with it, why don't we get something out of it? The thing is, it's a 6 times increase that they're looking at. 600% increase. And if you think things are expensive now, oh my goodness, you have no idea what they have in store for you. Right, let's get on with the show and get into our events. Now, first off, we usually like to cover what's going on with the ostriches. David Creighton has been following up on the farm, and as expected, the government is playing the only card that they can, which is to terrorize Canadian citizens in order to get their way. Because when you disagree with their death cult, they will come after you with every tool in their toolbox. And one of them is to treat you like a political prisoner. And they will do this in this very way by imposing their own fuckery on you.
Commentator, writer, and journalist. I'm here today to tell you why you should support with your donation Universal Ostrich Farms. The fight is not over. In fact, in many ways, it's just beginning. Now, the voice and the face of that farm, especially during that brutal occupation by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency and the RCMP, was Katie Besitney. She's been on this show with mine many, many times. And we've talked about that night of November 5th and early November 6th, when the CFIA marksmen slaughtered hundreds of ostriches. Some of them didn't die immediately. They lingered throughout the night. And this brutal organization finished the job in the morning. It was a nightmare for Katie, her mom, and all of the supporters who stood by and watched this atrocity unfold. And Katie buried her grief in her tears and the profound depression that came over her as a result of this. But Katie has put her armor back on, and she's fighting back with a new association that's going to be called A Voice for Farmers. And as Katie likes to say, it's not that farmers have no voice. They need to be reminded that they have a voice. And that's Katie's new objective. Let's listen.
Farm out there will have a chance to have some support and never be left alone in limbo or feeling bullied by an agency that has had no accountability and no oversight for decades. Remembering that this agency is an agency that has performs its own internal investigations, performs its own audits. They are only accountable to themselves. So making sure that every farmer out there has the ability to reach out to a support network within that association, whether it be a team of some lawyers, a couple vets, people that are all willing to come and bring the professional backgrounds into one area that we can support our farmers, support our agricultural sector, and give everybody hope for a strong, independent, healthy future in Canada for our animals, for our dedicated farmers, and even all of our farmers with orchards and our food.
So why do you need to support Katie in this venture? Because this farm was ordered by the Supreme Court of Canada when it denied its appeal of this execution of their ostriches. The Supreme Court of Canada ordered the farm to pay the entire legal expenses of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. That's about 11 months potentially. Could be millions of dollars. The farm could also potentially be on the hook for the costs of the RCMP CFIA occupation of their farm. That includes everything from the salaries of the officers to the bales of hay and the fencing that was purchased. That could also be a very hefty bill. And this farm has no guarantee that they're going to receive any compensation from the Mark Carney government because the farm was not compliant through this process. So give today, donate today. Go to Justice for Our Ostriches. That's the new site. That's the new website that Katie will be running the fundraising and the association from. You can still go to Save Our Ostriches, which is still up and running. So I encourage you to do that today. Give generously today. This is about helping a farm and farmers in distress and helping Katie move on.
It's absolutely horrible what they did. And we fully expected that, like I was mentioning in my long intro, political prisoners. This is how they treat Canadians who disagree with the authoritarian direction that the bureaucracy under current Liberal government is moving. Now, let's not forget the origins of the legislation that allowed the CFIA to become who they are. And I repeat this all the time. I've had videos on this. Let's not forget that it was a Harper senator, friend of his, who was appointed, who then pushed forward, it's always done in committee and works. I mean, it's not that particular senator. He was probably brought on and say, okay, here's a bill you got to work through and push through. So he brings this bill S11 through on 2009. It reaches royal assent in 2011, and it gave the ability to the CFIA to create their own legislation, which made them unanswerable to anyone except themselves and the minister. So if you have a minister under a government that doesn't care about its citizens like the Liberals do, that are only ideologically minded and don't care about how many lives are lost in the process of the ideology, which they have proven repeatedly. And I've talked about the death numbers here, 90,000 plus now dead through MAID. Who knows how many people dying from the fraudulent COVID-19 vaccine that they give? Over 76,000 people dead waiting in healthcare lineups, waiting just to see an appointment with someone. Right, and then how many overdose deaths? Over 56,000 and counting. Probably a higher number than that for their harm reduction. These are all ideological things that the Liberals have pushed. They are a death cult, just like they were a death cult for this. We can go on forever about this, but let's just do our public service announcement and remind everyone that the mainstream media that you watch is a qualified Canadian journalism organization, which means they are controlled by the government. Close to 30 grand a year is what they get for each person who works in their company if they sign on to this as part of their CRA sign up. And if they don't follow the rules, if they don't rebroadcast the Liberal message from the Liberal government, well, then they don't get to stay a QCJO organization. This is how the government has been controlling you through this media. It's not objective. And do not forget, in 2019, they removed the law. They removed the law that would penalize media if you publish lies. Liberals removed that. So not only have they gained full control of the media, they're allowed to lie to you without any penalty whatsoever. So let's get into our carbon tax. People calling BS on my 600% carbon tax claim. Well, here it is from the horse's mouth. 6 times increase. Carbon tax now set to rise to $170 by 2030. Previously, Smith froze it at 95, but she's agreed to raise it. Don't forget the new clean fuel tax too. Laughing out loud. Because we don't really need to listen to Carney on this. Now, here we have the Liberal chair of the Health Committee yesterday abruptly shut down today's meeting, even though the University of Toronto was summoned to testify. And this is not the first committee that the Liberals have shut down. And this is how they keep themselves out of the public eye. They operate in the dark. They keep, remember, 2015, we will be the most transparent government ever. They have been blocking access to records forever. I guess their biggest one would be the SDTC documentation that they refused to give in June 2024 when the Speaker of the House told them, "Oh, well, you can't conduct any more business in the lower house until you produce these documents. It's a government order, parliamentary order. You can't carry on the business." Now, of course, there were a few things that they got to vote on the side that were like emergencies, right? But that the whole year, 2 sessions, nothing, and nothing until the election this year that happened in April. And people didn't listen. They didn't listen. They didn't look at the facts, right? Oh, MAGA, Trump, elbows up. Here we are, elbozos, with another committee shutting down because they don't want their fuckery exposed. Conservatives exposed at the University of Toronto is making over $45 million a year training foreign doctors sponsored by authoritarian regimes. Oh, yeah, these doctors leave Canada as soon as their training ends. Outstanding. Outstanding work, Liberals. Meanwhile, Canadians who study medicine abroad are told there is no training capacity for them back home. Why are the Liberals silencing us from asking questions? Because that's what they do. That's how they control you. If you don't know what's going on, then you don't know. Meanwhile, Andrew Lawton, my good friend, the Liberals' hill to die on was protecting child sexual abuse material users from prison time. My hill to die on is freedom of expression. Conservatives will not let the Liberals ram through Censorship Bill C9. Now, of course, there have been a lot of lefties reposting Andrew's post here saying, "Oh, he doesn't want to protect children, blah, blah, blah." No. You don't get bullshit us all the time. As a matter of fact, we do have video about that. So let's listen to John Carpe. God, I hope I put the right one here. No, that's not it. Come on. Sorry about that, folks. So this is something we've been tracking. Well, I've been tracking for a while. It's obvious if you go to these videos here. So this Vladimir Ilyich, that was just a background. He wrote a lot of stuff in his life. The chaos agent obviously breaks down what we're in store for. And in this particular video, I will finish Canada, the 25 of the 43 Stalinist, communist, Marxist goals as they are being achieved through all these bills, right? And what are you going to trust the banker? Yeah. This guy, this Brookfield guy, who's slowly siphoning and directing all the policies to make himself rich, just like we warned you he would. Right? And how do you do this? Well, you do this by controlling the message, right? So here we have elimination of all laws governing obscenity by calling them censorship and a violation of free speech and express. And they're doing this right here through these bills. And they can send you to prison for life for violating free speech laws and arrest you without a warrant. That's what's in these bills. Let's listen to John Carpe.
Canada is going to take a step towards becoming more like the United Kingdom, where every day over 30 citizens are arrested by police over offensive tweets. Citizens are questioned by police over political commentary. We've even had a case of parents arrested in front of their own children over a private WhatsApp message. I'm urging you to contact your member of parliament today or tomorrow or this week and ask him or her to vote against Bill C9.
Please leave a brief message, and one of our staff will get back to you as soon as possible. Due to the high volume of calls you receive,
of hate with accuracy or precision. Bill C9 takes a stab at it by saying that hate speech is not necessarily what discredits, humiliates, hurts, or offends. Hate is not disdain or dislike. However, hate is detestation or vilification. Obviously, no clarity, no precision there that can give guidance to citizens to know if they're breaking the law or not. You can be jailed for up to 2 years for willfully promoting hatred against a group that is identifiable by its race or ethnicity.
So anyway, please go and watch the video if you want to know more. John Carpy has his video on his site. I've got it tagged there as well. And then, of course, what Andrew is saying here makes absolute sense.
Could have had more insights had the Liberals not decided that 1 year was too cruel and unusual a punishment for people who traffic in child sexual exploitation and abuse material. And I find it shocking that that was what they decided was their hill to die on. Well, my hill to die on is freedom of expression. And this Liberal government has shown reckless disregard for that. When we engage in work as committee, we are the gatekeepers between law that has not been scrutinized, has not been vetted, has not been analyzed, and things that are passed by this House of Commons. When you try to aggressively and wrongfully accelerate the committee process, what you are doing is denying Canadians the opportunity to improve bad law or to, in some cases, gut terrible law. So when you try to speed up that process, it is either because you do not care what Canadians have to say, or more importantly, you know what they're going to say. And this is precisely what's happening on Bill C9.
Exactly. When Andrew, for a brief time, had a publication, an online publication called Landmark Report. I wrote for him briefly. And I had some interactions with Andrew over the years. Andrew is fearless, right? I had asked him once, aren't you afraid of, because at the time I had to write under a pseudonym because I was in Canadian Armed Forces. They don't like you doing that kind of stuff. So I was saying, aren't you afraid of having your name out there? And because, all these forces of evil will come after you. And he didn't care. He says, nope, no, they're the ones who need to be afraid of me. And this is the energy that he's bringing to his office. Ah, yes. I promised the LGB Alliance I would read this after I saw their post today. Now, this is more on Bill C9, and they're concerned with this bill as well, right? And the LGB Alliance, they've had enough of this LGBTQ BS that they've been wrapped into. So back when, in the 80s, when people were finally like, which at our younger generation at the time, in our late teens and early 20s, we were all like, yeah, we don't care if people are gay. Could you just get over it, right? And society was moving along fine, and that recognition was there. And it went from lesbian, gay to LGB, and then after that, all the other letters started attaching to it. Now here we have Bill C9, Policing Thoughts and Words Rather Than an Actual Crime, November 21st, 2025. LGBT Alliance Canada stands fundamentally against Bill C9. However, there is a legitimacy crisis around who can speak on matters in the political process. While lesbians, gays, and bisexuals must speak independently from the legacy charities and LGBTQIA+ alphabet, the confusion and division in Canada is second to none. The eroding freedom of expression is a factor making it harder to criticize bad policy. It risks capturing a majority of speech in the public interest for debate and protest, not just individual expression. Sterilizing children in the name of gay rights definitely hurts gay rights. Calling gay people hateful for pointing it out is actually one of the most homophobic trends to emerge since we won our modern rights. Yeah. And all the feminists out there that are going on about gender rights, having their spaces invaded by men, their private spaces invaded by men, the insanity of it all. Where was I? Right. So what's most important is that we make a clear record of our community's call to reject Bill C9 and clarify the danger of this policy direction. You can read our view below and contact us at, and you have a list, any questions. LGB launches. All right. So it's not just the far right and the MAGites and the Trumpsters that hate the liberals and are concerned about all their stupid policies coming through. It's coming from all sides. The Liberals are the most illiberal government in the history of Canada. Let's not forget, they've added more debt than any other prior government combined. All prior governments combined. They still haven't answered for all the deaths they've caused with their policies, which the opposition has been strangely silent on. Let's hope they bring it up as we get closer to an election, because all governments fall. Every government falls eventually. Well, we're getting close. So let's watch this video here. One of the videos we put up on our site was regarding how the Speaker of the House denied a member of Parliament to ask questions from the government because the Speaker said that it wasn't government business. Of course, in my video, I showed how the Speaker was fine to allow the government to ask questions of the opposition during question period that had nothing to do with government business. That was fine on several occasions. But when a member of Parliament for the Conservative side has some embarrassing questions regarding investigations regarding Liberal members, well, that's blocked. Well, that was blocked. He tried it again yesterday to block it, but eventually he did allow the question.
In Canada's in the Canadian government conflict of interest legislation, when it comes to the regulations that public office holders must respect, it is clearly indicated that to favor a person or organization through a person who has been retained to represent them is not allowed. The federal Liberal member for Laval-les-Îles is currently being investigated by Quebec's chief electoral officer because he participated in Ottawa flim-flammery. Can the Prime Minister confirm that none of his ministers or members are part of that flim-flammery? Next question. The Honourable Member for Charles-Haut-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, I once again am coming back to federal conflict of interest legislation. We know that the federal MP for Laval-les-Îles is currently being investigated by the Quebec Chief Electoral Officer. That is a fact. So my question is simple. Can the Prime Minister confirm that no member of his cabinet or caucus are part of that scandal? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, that is not a question that has to do with the administration of this government. But I can confirm that all of the members and ministers on this side of the House carefully follow the ethics code, which is one of the strictest in the world.
Yeah, so it's a typical non-answer that we would expect, right? But at least the question actually got asked, and there was an actual answer. So that makes it a little better for the answered. Let's give an example of the other kinds of questions that Liberals were refusing to answer.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's own caucus are fighting over this pipeline announcement. Ministers are worried, BC Liberal caucus members are seething and angry, and leaks are coming out by the hour. Meanwhile, Canadians know the real issue. Without a pipeline to the Pacific, the United States is basically our only market for Canadian oil. We cannot reach global buyers until we have coastal access. When will the Prime Minister stop managing caucus drama and start using that he already has to guarantee a pipeline?
Now, we'd show you the answer, but all the answers are non-answers, right? They don't answer. They don't answer questions at all, whatsoever. Let's watch another clip from yesterday.
For Ponoka Didsbury.
We know that the Prime Minister has been meeting with Brookfield executives behind closed doors. This is the same Prime Minister who served as board chair of Brookfield Asset Management. And now we learn that he won't allow Alberta to build a pipeline unless it initiates a $16.5 billion carbon capture project where Brookfield profits. The taxes and royalties from a pipeline should be used for doctors, nurses, roads, schools, police, housing, and securing our country. But instead, billions will now pour into the coffers of corporate giants and liberal insiders, including, of course, Brookfield. How much revenue does the Prime Minister have to divert to his own company before he demands that Canada just simply change its name to Brookfield?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
So that's quite the running theme. Let's watch the next clip.
Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister explain to Canadians why every time we ask about a conflict of interest with Brookfield, his answer is basically, who cares? Nothing to see here. Just ignore the fact that I used to run the place. Because Canadians are starting to wonder, if Brookfield were any closer to this government, would it need a visitor's pass or just a set of cabinet keys? So my question is simple. How can Canadians trust decisions aren't being made in the boardroom instead of the House of Commons? Or is this Liberal government now offering loyalty points for conflict of interest?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians made a decision on April 28th between two visions for this country. A vision of hope, a vision of leadership versus slogans and division. Our Prime Minister is a world economic and business leader. He has traveled the world building up relationships and signing deals to build our economy, something that leaders never worked a day in. Thank you.
So that's one of the things that this little troll repeats all the time. You know, they constantly pointing to the other side that they've never worked a day in their life, or so dismissing years of service as an elected official is really insulting. Now, whether you like them or not, whether it's NDP, Liberal, Green, Bloc Québécois, it doesn't matter who they are. As an elected representative, they went through a lot of hassle. They won the race. They got to the office, and now they're in public service. Oh, yes, they're well compensated. They get paid well. And if they are true public servants to the public that elected them, they will work for them. They will work for every single one of them, taking their concerns to the House as best they can as a representative member of the legislation. And it's not an easy thing to do. And I know you don't want to be at it 24/7, but it's constantly there. And you know that it's a mountain of things that you will never completely accomplish because it's just too much for you to do. And you have to pick and choose because you can't win all the battles. But it's a calling, and you either embrace it or you don't. And for someone to have done it for so many times and to want to continue to do it, especially with all the abuse, and I'm talking about the conservative side, especially all the abuse that's heaped upon them under liberal control press, you have to wonder about these little trolls. Like when you're saying this stuff, are you projecting what you don't feel about yourself? Did you actually feel that maybe you're ripping off taxpayers because you're not performing your work and you're just projecting that on other people? You little troll. And he really is a troll. He'll repeat a bunch of slogans and then accuse the other side of saying slogans. Just a despicable little man. All right. Let's watch the next clip.
Member for Kitchener South Hespeler.
Mr. Speaker, that member did not answer the question, so I'm going to ask it again. The Prime Minister caved on counter tariffs, on digital services taxes, on legal disputes with the softwood lumber. We thought he was getting nothing for Canadians, but it turns out he was getting lots for his company, Brookfield. Days after he was in the White House, the Americans signed an $80 billion nuclear reactor deal with Brookfield. Why is it that everywhere the Prime Minister goes, Brookfield gets a sweet deal and Canadians get no deal? Why?
Honourable Minister of International...
So I was trying to bring up another one. These clips are just too short. I didn't have enough time to set up. I was a little busy today with Blazing Cat for Fridays at 9 o'clock. All right, let's move on to the next bring up our screen. There we go. Because they are into reading statements by the members. And I'm just seeing a conservative throw a bunch of papers around after saying, who cares? In their statements by members. All right. Remember when Mark Carney invested in GlaxoSmithKline? We mentioned this yesterday. Who's developing an avian bird flu vaccines when they bought 500,000 doses for Canadians. This is a long-term thing. Remember, under the Trudeau government, they bought billions worth of injections for Canadians. And a lot of them have been going to waste because people don't want them. After so many people were dropping like flies after taking the injections, other than those that they coerced into taking it and those that they brainwashed into still thinking that these are beneficial for you, even though obviously the science says otherwise. I mean, science is pretty well built on data, right? And when you have more people that die from a current injection, which is more than all other prior injections combined, then you have to ask yourself, is it really that safe? Especially when we don't even have a functioning vaccine injury support program. So why is the Liberal government buying all this stuff? Well, obviously, they must be in cahoots with Big Pharma, right? Because they've allowed them to operate and do all kinds of nasty things to Canadians without any issues. Now, here we have German MEP, member of European Parliament, Christine Anderson, stood up in the heart of Brussels and dropped a promise that is shaking the entire European Parliament. She vowed to expose what really happened with Ursula von der Leyen's $35 billion Pfizer mRNA contracts and those deleted text messages with Pfizer's CEO. And I'm still, is it a response here from Steve McKinnon? Because he seems to be pretty agitated. So I don't know if they've actually started. I'm just looking down here. Now, twice she gathered through signatures for full inquiry committee. Twice the establishment killed in its secret, behind closed doors and in the Conference of Presidents, with zero public record of who voted to bury the truth. Now she's done asking nicely. Together with Dutch MEP Marjorie Elker's PVV Beert Wilder's party and Swedish MEP Charlie Weimers. There's a lot of activity here in the House. I think we're going to have to go have a look because I'm not sure if this is a statement or whether they might have actually started because the House is pretty empty. Let's go to the House. Bring it right up. Oh, it looks like they might actually be into it. Let's get back to the start. Oh, loud Steve McKinnon. We got to listen to him. Yes, we have started.
L'honorable député de Mégantic. The honorable member for Mégantic, l'érable, Lobinière. More and more Canadians are wondering how they're going to manage to make ends meet, but not the Prime Minister. He gets a little richer every day. Since he's able to make decisions to benefit his company, Brookfield, for example, after meeting with the American president, he came back with nothing for Canadians, but a lot for his company, which managed to sign an $80 billion nuclear energy agreement. We are told that he manages cabinet like a private company. Well, indeed, why do the profits end up going into his pockets while Canadians always end up paying the bill? The Honourable Government House Leader. Madam Speaker, this morning, Canadians are very pleased with the results of our incredibly powerful economy. The best in the G7. 2.6% growth over the last quarter. Defense investment, our economic investments. It's the result of our hard work with the provinces to meet the economic ambitions of all of Canada. The honourable member for Mégantic-l'Érable-Lobinière. Before becoming Prime Minister, the chair of Brookfield moved their headquarters to New York. Before he became Prime Minister, the chair of Brookfield created 3 investment funds, one of them over a bike repair shop. All of this to avoid paying taxes in Canada. That's called tax evasion. And the former chair of Brookfield, now that he's Prime Minister, is raking in the profits by taking government decisions that favor his own company. Why does he continue to act like the chair of Brookfield, placing his interests ahead of those of Canadians who are picking up the bill? The Honourable Government House Leader. Madam Speaker, I sympathize with the official opposition because they don't have any idea what to do in this situation. Every day, practically, the other side of the House is left having to deal with the fact that we're having amazing economic growth, that we're getting results. For example, this morning we heard 2.6% growth over the last quarter. That means jobs. That means rural economic development. The results are in, Madam Speaker. We are building Canada strong.
Prime Minister's trust may be blind, but the math is not. This week, we found out from Brookfield's chief operating officer that the Prime Minister stands to make millions in carried interest payments from his company's success related to climate and infrastructure schemes that he set up. Many, if not all, of the public financial instruments, funds, and policies the Prime Minister started pushing when he was pulling Trudeau's strings as his economic advisor in 2020 align with Brookfield's strategy and success. How is it ethical when the Prime Minister is using the power of his office to benefit him and his company? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday I met with the operating engineers all across the country who came to talk to me about the investments we're making in building Canada strong. And Madam Speaker, they're so excited about the work for their members. And as the proud mother of an operating engineer, I couldn't be more thrilled as well. These are great jobs for young people, for tradespeople all across the country. This is how you build a country strong, Madam Speaker. You invest in the workers of today and tomorrow.
The honourable member for Barrie South Unister. Brookfield COO also confirmed that the umbilical cord between the Prime Minister and his company will stay attached until 2034 because the fund the Prime Minister set up will mature then. That means if it does well, he does really well. But here's the problem. He knows full well what's in his blind trust and is using the power of his office to promote policies that benefit his company and him. AI, modular housing, carbon capture, nuclear, and the transition model of public risk for private return he set up while advising Trudeau will make him millions. How is this ethical, if not illegal? The Honourable Minister.
Canada's GDP growth last quarter was 2.6%, blowing out the economist's projections, Mr. Speaker. That's what growing Canada strong looks like. It's an investment in the potential of the country, but it's an investment in right now. We have the highest rate of women ever in the workforce, Mr. Speaker. You know why? Because we have an affordable child care agreement. And yesterday, Saskatchewan signed an extension, 5 years, $1.5 billion to make sure we can not only get women in the workforce, but keep them there. And one more thing, Madam Speaker, $10 a day has been achieved in Saskatchewan. That's real action. That's partnership with
all the same talking points over and over again.
St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister has vast conflicts of interest with Brookfield. That's why the Ethics Commissioner specifically told him not to meet with Brookfield. Despite this, the Prime Minister secretly met with the Chief Operating Officer of Brookfield in October. So a simple question, why did the Prime Minister violate the clear direction of the Ethics Commissioner?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Madam Speaker, the member's resort to personal attacks and dealing in conspiracy theories speaks to a larger issue. A member from the province of Alberta today unable to celebrate the agreement that we have achieved that his own premier is celebrating in public about the opportunity to protect the environment and create good jobs. If he won't stand up for Alberta, I, as somebody from the East Coast who spent 5 years there, absolutely will. The GDP numbers that we've seen come in the past quarter, seeing it go up 2.6%, means good jobs for people and food on the tables for families. We're here to create jobs. It's a shame the Conservatives are opposed.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Conspiracy theory, the Ethics Commissioner told the Prime Minister not to meet with Brookfield, and then he did so. Now, this is a Prime Minister that was the chair of Brookfield and who stands to make tens of millions of dollars from in future bonus pay and from stock options. And not only did the Prime Minister clearly violate the direction of the Ethics Commissioner, he attempted to cover it up by not disclosing the meeting. Is this the Prime Minister's idea of ethics?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Madam Speaker, I think my colleague has left his tinfoil hat in the men's room before he attended question period here today. He's here talking about things that do not matter to the people at home as much as things like doctors, jobs, lower taxes. Frankly, Madam Speaker, it is a shame that members of this House of Commons are simply not focused on the priorities of Canadians. The GDP has increased 2.6% in the past quarter. The last jobs report showed 67,000 new jobs. Every month since the Prime Minister has held that office, wages have increased faster than inflation. Madam Speaker, we're going to stand up to build an economy that can stand on its own 2 feet, advance major projects, create jobs for people at home. I wish they'd support it.
Corrupt Liberals say Canadians don't want to know about liberal corrupt.
Madam Speaker, this is no time to celebrate. Yesterday's agreement with Alberta is climate betrayal. Instead of announcing one more dirty oil pipeline, the Liberals are saying there might be several, in addition to expanding Trans Mountain, which would mean at least 1.4 million additional barrels of oil per day. The Liberals are also openly threatening BC. They are saying they might force through their oil fantasies, which is one of the worst documented cases of predatory federalism. This is an incredibly aggressive policy, both on climate and in terms of provincial jurisdiction. How can these MPs continue to justify this? The Honourable Government House Leader. Well, Madam Speaker, do you want to talk about provincial jurisdiction? Let's speak about Quebec's ambitions on development, mines, critical minerals, renewable energy, clean energy. Our approach, Madam Speaker, is giving results. 2.6% of GDP growth over the last quarter. What does that mean? That means that in my esteemed colleagues' riding, mothers and fathers will be able to have hopes for their children and good jobs throughout all of Quebec's regions.
Now what's going on? Why do they do this?
The Honourable Member for Gaspésie-La-Madeleine-Listigouche. Madam Speaker, these Liberals' oil folly is climate betrayal, and betrayal towards voters who thought that voting Liberal would be greener than voting Conservative. It's a betrayal towards Liberal members who ran on green values. It's a betrayal towards victims of the increasingly frequent natural disasters. These victims were hoping that elected officials would be held accountable. So the real question isn't why the member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie left cabinet. The real question is, how do the other Liberals manage to justify staying in this government? The Honourable Government House Leader. Madam Speaker, we stand strong on this side of the House. Why? Because, unlike the Bloc Québécois, we will stand up to our election promises. We promise to build Canada strong. We promise to respect provincial jurisdiction and to cooperate with provinces. And yes, Madam Speaker, we promise to reassure all of the mothers and fathers in Canada who are hoping that their children will have an economic future that is as prosperous as ours. That is what we're doing. We're meeting our commitments, and I would invite the Bloc Québécois to do the same. The Honourable Member for Côte-Nord, Kawa-Chikamat-Nitassinan. Madam Speaker, Quebecers know very well what it's like when Canada decides to completely ignore a province's needs. And today, it is BC that is suffering its own night of the long knives. The Liberals in Alberta decided to sign an agreement without BC to force it to accept a pipeline, claiming that it's for national interest reasons. Quebecers should start worrying because the federal government has wanted to add a pipeline along the St. Lawrence for over 10 years. If this is what the Liberals are doing today, are they planning to do the same thing to Quebec? The Honourable Government House Leader. Madam Speaker, this morning I got good economic news. 2.6% GDP growth. And you know what BC is not saying? Oh, we need the Bloc Québécois to defend us. We will work closely with BC. We will do so because we have a duty to consult and respect BC First Nations. That is what we're going to do. We are going to do all of that, Madam Speaker, and we don't need the help of the Bloc Québécois, which only wants to split the country.
The Prime Minister's priorities are clear. He has gone from elbows up to putting his hands in the air and saying, who cares when it comes to negotiating for Canada. However, he's still working hard for the interests of Brookfield. Right. We learned in the recent budget that the Liberals are giving $500 million to the European Space Agency. Unreal. Guess who owns 50% of the UK campus where those funds are going? You guessed it right, Brookfield. Oh, no. Why does this Prime Minister continue to put his financial interests above the interests of Canadians?
Brookfield strong. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, let me remind the member that we are doing very, very well. We woke up to tremendous news this morning, and he can rest assured that our government is entirely focused on building on our economy and on supporting industries and workers that require our help. We were elected to build Canada, and that's exactly what we're doing. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Northumberland Clark.
We continue to hear these old, tired lines from the so-called new government. They tell us again and again, Canadians have never had it so good. Here's the reality. Food bank usage is at record rates, over 2 million per month. Meanwhile, Brookfield stock has gone up by over 20% since the Prime Minister got elected. Maybe that's just a coincidence. Why do Canadians have to continue to suffer while Liberal elites get wealthier and wealthier?
Brookfield strong. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, let me remind the member who comes from the same province that I do that we're actually helping invest in Darlington New Nuclear Project in Bowmanville. It's a project that is going to build 4 new small nuclear reactors, the first of its kind in the G7. It's going to provide clean, reliable electricity to power 1.2 million homes. It's going to reduce our carbon emissions, and it's going to create 18,000 good-paying, quality jobs for the people of Ontario. Madam Speaker, why don't the members opposite get on board and support a plan that is actually growing our economy 2.6% this year?
Honourable member for York Durham.
To get elected, the Prime Minister promised to negotiate a win. But now that the election is over, he says, who cares? Canadians were promised a Churchill, but what we got was Chamberlain. He appeased the U.S. president by dropping the digital services tax. He appeased the U.S. president by withdrawing our softwood lumber challenge. But appeasement didn't get us any trade peace. We thought we got nothing, but in fact, he just got nothing for Canadians. Brookfield got an $80 billion nuclear deal. Is that coincidence or cause and effect? Why does it appear that this Prime Minister continues to put his private interests ahead of those of Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister.
Madam Speaker, it is really challenging to take the Conservatives at their word when they're trying to purport to care about Canadians. I mean, they vote against everything, even with the word care in it. Right. Dental care, child care, pharmacare, even health care infrastructure to build hospitals in my community in Durham region where that member is from. They won't even support that. So you want to show that you care, step up to support major projects in this country that will create, like the new nuclear project at Darlington, creating 21,700 jobs in our region, and that member voted against it.
Shame on it. Honourable member for York Durham. Order!
Canadians and Conservatives care about the integrity of the highest office in the land, the Prime Minister. The conflict of interest rules are clear for members of the House. They are to arrange their private affairs in a manner to avoid real or apparent conflicts of interest. An $80 billion nuclear deal for Brookfield, $500 million to the European Space Agency to benefit Brookfield, undisclosed meetings with Brookfield executives. These raise serious issues of conflict of interest. Why does it appear that the Prime Minister continues to put his private interests ahead of those of Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
This member would rather question the loyalty of our Prime Minister, who is securing deals all around the world to drive investment into Canada, to protect jobs, who's stepping up with packages of support for tariff-impacted industries. This member won't even stand up to support a hospital in Durham region with the healthcare infrastructure funding that we put in the federal budget. He won't stand up to support a major project that will provide 1.2 million homes in our region with clean energy and 21,700 jobs. How can he say he cares about anybody but himself?
The Honourable Member for Montmorency Charlevoix. It's Black Friday, but no deals for Canadians. This week we learned that the Liberals gave $100 $500 million to the European Space Agency, which is 10 times more than the former agreement under Justin Trudeau. And who holds 50% of that campus? Brookfield does. Once again, the Prime Minister is placing his own interests above those of Canadians. Or in fact, he's harming Canadians. He's harming investment here in the country. And he's harming jobs in Quebec and Canada. Why can't this Prime Minister place Canadians above his own interests? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's pretty simple, Madam Speaker. Everything we're doing is to help Canadians. The Conservatives are trying to pretend they care about ethics to distract people from the real work we're doing. In the budget, there is a series of measures that will help our economy and workers. Ports, roads, work with Hydro-Quebec to increase their production, mines, jobs. That's what it means to build Canada strong. Let's stop trying to distract people and let's work on what really matters. The Honourable Member. Madam Speaker, the devil is in the details. Yesterday, the Liberal government made a number of announcements in Alberta, and the Prime Minister once again found a way to benefit himself. He announced a carbon capture program. But who holds the technology for that type of mega project? Brookfield does. When Brookfield makes money, so does the Prime Minister. Why is it that every time there's an announcement, it seems that the Liberal government is going to look at the list of Brookfield's projects to pick and choose its own projects? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Well, Madam Speaker, what I would tell my colleague is that we are working closely with all provinces and sectors. This government was elected to build a strong economy, a sustainable economy, and a future for our children. And the proof that our approach is working is that today our productivity is going up. That's great news, Madam Speaker. Our policies are working, and I would ask our colleagues to join us and vote in favor of these measures.
For Richmond Hill South.
Every time this Prime Minister talks trade, it seems to be closing deals for his old firm Brookfield, while Canadian workers and taxpayers are left out in the sidelines. He went to Washington, and Brookfield walked away with an $80 billion nuclear deal. He went to London, and Brookfield got over $500 million for the European Space Agency. He hosted Swedish royalty, and Brookfield announced an AI deal with Sweden. Now he's forcing Alberta to pour billions of taxpayer dollars into carbon capture just to get a pipeline, exactly where Brookfield holds major stakes. So when this Prime Minister said he will build at a scale and speed not seen in generations, did he really mean just for Brookfield and not for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, it appears that my honourable colleague has not really been cognizant of what the Prime Minister's been doing. $70 billion, Madam Speaker, and a financial commitment of investment from the UAE. We can also list the Philippines, Indonesia, Germany, Thailand, the Philippines, India. These are the trade deals that we're embarking upon, Madam Speaker. On the other side of the House, what are they focused on? Issues that Canadians are not going to benefit from.
That's the evil cunt that killed and injured Canadian Armed Forces members by forcing them to take fraudulent.
Madam Speaker, we are shocked by what we've heard from the new Minister of Natural Resources. Yesterday, while he was commenting on the departure of the Minister of the Environment, he said that those who care about what the Liberals are doing on oil are simply nostalgic for the past and looking for silver bullets. Apparently, caring about the environment means you're just nostalgic. It's very concerning knowing that this is someone who is close to the Prime Minister. They've been close ever since they were both young bankers at Goldman Sachs. So is it true that for the Liberals, fighting climate change is just a matter of nostalgia? The Honourable Government House Leader. Madam Speaker, the Minister of Natural Resources was referring to the fact that the current economic situation has just changed. I think that all Quebecers understand very well that we are in a new era. Our trade relationship with the US and the entire world has changed. So that means that we have to secure our economy. We have to work with the provinces. We have to meet our economic objectives. We have to launch big renewable energy projects, critical mineral projects in Quebec. We said we would build the country, and that's what we're doing. The Honourable Member for Beauharnois, Salaberry-Soulanges, Huntington. Madam Speaker, what I'm hearing is shocking. The same minister also said that any Liberal colleagues who are concerned about this are just naive Boy Scouts, according to the Toronto Star. So apparently in Canada nowadays, you can be the Minister of Natural Resources and think that being worried about the proliferation of dirty oil pipelines is just a matter of magical thinking, nostalgia, naivete, being a Boy Scout. I don't even think the leader of the Conservatives is that much of a climate skeptic. How can it be that Quebec Liberals continue to support what we're hearing from a minister like that? The Honourable Secretary of State. Madam Speaker, we had a province that was having difficulty joining with us on fighting climate change and climate and emissions. And now today, that same province has now agreed to an increase in the carbon price and has also agreed to reduce its emissions, methane emissions, by 75%. 75% decrease in methane emissions. And in order for the project to occur, we need an agreement with BC. We need an agreement with First Nations. And we need a backer. The Honourable Member for Beauce. Madam Speaker, the U.S. has brought in devastating tariffs, 45% on Canadian softwood lumber. And recently the Prime Minister was asked if he had spoken to Donald Trump about trade, and he said, who cares? Well, I can tell you that in Beauce, people do care. 8,000 jobs depend on softwood lumber in Chaudière-Appalaches. Those people definitely care. Madam Speaker, will the Prime Minister rise today, look those 8,000 workers in the eye, and repeat, who cares? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Madam Speaker. In rural areas, we need our forestry workers. We need our Canadian softwood lumber. We are all proud of that sector in Canada. In my own riding, I have proud forestry sector businesses. This week, we announced significant measures to support that sector. We know that these times are very difficult. And when that happens, we support each other, which is what we are doing to support the forestry sector. We will settle these problems with the U.S. Meanwhile, we will help the sector. The Honourable Member for Beauce. Unlike the Prime Minister, Madam Speaker, we care about the softwood lumber sector. What the sector needs is not a loan program. That won't replace the $780 million of salaries that are currently being received in the region. The Prime Minister promised he'd reach a deal with the Americans, but instead things are getting worse. Companies don't need loans. They want a trade agreement with the Americans. That's the key market for their sector. So will the Prime Minister stop saying, who cares? Will he sign a softwood lumber deal with the Americans? Yes or no? The Honourable Government House Leader. Madam Speaker, I will not listen to the Conservatives on the matter of softwood lumber. We are in a trade war, Madam Speaker. And when it comes to softwood lumber, that trade war has been going on for decades. We are here to help people. Unlike the Conservatives, we are supporting workers. We are supporting our businesses. We are modernizing and diversifying our products. And we are ensuring that Canadian softwood lumber is used in our major housing projects in Canada. That's what we're doing.
Prince George. In 2006, our Conservative government negotiated an end to the longest softwood lumber war. We negotiated a 10-year agreement with a 1-year grace period, which this government squandered. These Liberals have failed to do this in 10 years. 10 years! Thousands of jobs. Over 30 mills closed in the province of British Columbia. The Prime Minister ran an entire election on a false premise that he was a man with a plan, that he could get the job done. Now he says, who cares? As our lumber industry is crippled and communities are decimated.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, we are in a trade war. We are in a very difficult situation, and in that situation, this government is standing with those affected workers. We are moving heaven and earth to help them. We just announced another $500 million of supports 2 days ago. The member is fully aware of this, and we are open to more ideas for more supports. Now, we had a take-note debate the other night. I asked the Conservative members for their ideas. Do you want to know how many ideas I got from them? Zero. How about we get some ideas on the table? We are happy to support. We are happy to work with you to support. Let's get some ideas on the table.
The honourable member for Caribou Prince George.
You want a flipping idea what to do? Get a flipping deal done. 10 years. 10 years. 10 years. Madam Speaker, another week, another mill closure in my riding. That's 100 direct and indirect jobs lost. That's hundreds of thousands of taxes for our municipalities. That's $1 million of taxes from our community of 100 Mile. Do you want to know who matters, Madam Speaker? It's the families that lost their jobs. That's who matters. Get their job done. Get agreement. Will the Prime Minister come to our region, tell them, look them in the eyes and tell them that they don't matter?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, helpful ideas like just get a deal done are not going to get the deal done. We need ideas. We need support for workers, the workers you and I both care about. How about we work together to help this industry instead of these histrionics in the House? How about that?
The honourable member for Oshawa.
Clapping for
Mr.
failure.
Speaker, the Prime Minister was asked whether he had spoken to Trump about trade, and guess what he did? He brushed off the question saying, who cares? He may not think it's a serious matter, but Conservatives do, and so do auto workers in Oshawa and across Ontario and Quebec who are seeing their jobs disappear. Thousands of auto jobs are leaving Canada, and workers justifiably feel their jobs don't matter because this Prime Minister said so. So if the Prime Minister won't fight for Canadian auto workers, then who is he fighting for? Brookfield?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I would like to ask this member what she cares about. Does she care about health care, access to critical care and health care in our region? Because she voted against Budget 2025, including the Healthcare Infrastructure Fund, which will fund hospitals and healthcare facilities all across Canada, including in Durham region. Does she care about 21,700 jobs at the new nuclear project in Darlington? Because she voted against that as well, Madam Speaker. It's clear that she doesn't care about our region.
The Honourable Député de Terre.
The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Madam Speaker, NATO has long been a cornerstone of international rules-based order that has delivered peace and stability since the Second World War. Next week, our allies and partners will meet in Brussels to address the conflicts and challenges facing our alliance. Can the Minister of Foreign Affairs inform this House how she plans to represent Canada and work with our allies to advance our interests ahead of this important meeting?
Bonne question.
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for this question. And next week, I will be at NATO to discuss very important issues with our allies, for example, Ukraine, the Arctic, and our collective defence. With an investment of $80 billion in the 2025 budget, we're here for the Canadian Armed Forces and our defense sector.
Canadian Armed Forces members by coercing them into an experimental COVID-19 vaccine
for the collective
without
defense
informed consent,
of our
and
country
those
and the
that took
protection
it
of our
and got
country.
injured, they abandoned it.
Madam Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister promised Canadians a pipeline. Maybe, someday. He's not sure. Meanwhile, the Environment Minister can't even say the word pipeline, and another minister just jumped ship. This isn't a grand bargain, it's a grand ransom. The only thing certain is that Canadians' industrial carbon taxes are going up. Canadians have sacrificed a lot, and all we've received so far are vague Liberal promises. Will the Prime Minister tell us what year we will see shovels in the ground on a new oil pipeline to the West Coast?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House.
Madam Speaker, we had yesterday a very comprehensive display of meeting the ambitions and meeting the moment in Western Canada, in Alberta, making sure that we have a better path to fighting climate change, a higher price on industrial carbon. Premier Smith has signed on to a radical set of new measures to make sure we have clean electricity, to make sure we build data centers, to make sure we build nuclear energy. And you know who's going to do all that? Canada's building trades people, the men and women of Canada's building trades. We're going to be building Alberta strong, building Canada strong.
The Honourable Member for Parkland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Notice he didn't say pipeline. As part of the Great Ransom, taxpayers will be required to invest billions to pump air into the ground. Meanwhile, by pure coincidence, I'm sure, the Prime Minister's company, Brookfield, is the largest investor in carbon capture company Entropy. The Prime Minister is using taxpayers' funds to underwrite his company's investments. Brookfield's $300 million investment in Entropy is already backed by $200 million in taxpayers' funds. That's not Canada strong, that's Brookfield strong. How much does this Prime Minister stand to gain by forcing Canadians to fund his carbon capture projects?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, tinfoil is actually made of aluminum, so I'd like to thank the member for her first act supporting that sector in this House. The facts of the matter are this. Yesterday we announced an MOU with Alberta that increases economic prosperity for this country, that increases environmental sustainability and the durability of environmental action in this country, and it makes us less reliant on the United States. That's a good day for Alberta. That's a good day for Canada. I welcome the member's office to get on board.
The member for Abbotsford South Langley.
Madam Speaker, this week we saw reports that the BC Liberal caucus is seething, anxious, and angry of the Prime Minister's pipe dream to the Pacific Coast. To keep them quiet, he even gave the BC Premier a veto on the project and will increase the industrial carbon tax that will only make everything worse. When the Prime Minister said he would build at a scale and speed not seen in generations, did he mean taxes, not projects?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, yesterday was a great day for Canada because it got us onto a better course of action and more common ground in confederation between Alberta and Canada, which will also lead to a better course of action across the entire country. Part of the agreement was that we would work with British Columbia, we would work in a tripartite table, and of course we will all respect the Indigenous rights of peoples. This is great for Canada, this expands our markets, this expands our economy, and this makes environmental action more durable.
The Honourable Member for Abbotsford South Langley.
Madam Speaker, families need stronger paychecks and affordable energy. But instead building pipelines to the Pacific, the Prime Minister gives us more paper, more delays, and more vetoes. The MOU guarantees nothing except 7 months of waiting and 2 years of federal studies. When will the Prime Minister finally get out of the way, give Canadians a firm construction date for the West Coast pipeline, or will this be another Liberal broken promise?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Speaker. This Prime Minister is focused on making sure that we're creating good-paying jobs for all Canadians. We are investing and building things like they've never been done before. We're making sure that we diversify trade, so we're investing in our ports right in British Columbia so that we can export more to other markets like the Indo-Pacific. That is the focus of this government. That is the focus of this Prime Minister. We will not rest until we create good-paying jobs for all Canadians.
The Honourable Member for St. Lucan in South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Miss Speaker, Liberal MPs in BC are telling the media they are, quote, seething, anxious, and angry about a pipeline that would end Canada's economic dependence on the United States. The Liberal caucus is falling apart over this. The Prime Minister must not give his Keep It in the Ground caucus or Premier Evie a veto. Only he has the constitutional and legislative power to approve a pipeline today. Will he ignore the naysayers and approve it today, or will he offer more delay?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, we're committed on this side of the House to cooperative federalism with the province of Alberta, but we remain committed and we remain respectful of Aboriginal and treaty rights, as well as the free, prior, informed consent of communities entrenched in UNDRIP. And so we're going to continue to respect these rights. It's not only the right thing to do, but it's also the law.
The Honourable Member for St. Lucan in South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Madam Speaker, let's be clear what was signed yesterday. A memorandum that will hike the industrial carbon tax, and in exchange, the Liberals will allow a pipeline proposal to be further studied for the next 2 years. There are no timelines for approval, and many Liberals are demanding that the timelines be never. This Liberal caucus is divided. Will the Prime Minister ignore them, forget the tax hikes, and just approve a pipeline today? Or is this pipeline a pipe dream?
Yeah.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister of Immigration.
Madam Speaker, the slogans continue on the other side. What is lacking is seriousness. They condemn a decision signed by the Premier of Alberta. Yesterday was a great day for Alberta and for Canada. This government was elected on a policy vision to ensure more jobs in this country, economic stewardship, and environmental stewardship at the same time. We will maintain that vision from start to finish. I invite the member to join us.
The honourable member for Vernon Lake Country, Munishy.
Madam Speaker, we hear that the BC Liberal caucus is, quote, seething, anxious and angry about a possible pipeline, so the Prime Minister is appeasing them by hiding behind the provincial NDP like Brookfield hides behind Caribbean tax laws. After 9 years of Liberal energy mismanagement, Canadians want a pipeline. Will the Prime Minister do his job, stop the political games, and immediately get shovels in the ground on this oil pipeline?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, the far-reaching Memorandum of Understanding with Alberta includes a number of timelines. I invite the members to read it. By July 1st of next year is when a pipeline proposal will come from the province of Alberta. There are timelines, and we are seeing that not just talk about pipelines, but talks about AI data centers, nuclear energy, many ways we can grow the Canadian economy in a clean way, in a big way, in a way that doesn't rely as much on the United States of America. This is a good day for Alberta. This is a good day for Canada. I invite the members opposite to get on board.
The honourable member for Cloverdale, Langley City.
Madam Speaker, the Liberal government isn't just divided, it's cracking. BC Liberal MPs are publicly venting, unnamed ministers are warning of serious problems, and now their Quebec lieutenant has walked out of cabinet entirely. But while the Prime Minister struggles to hold his team together, Canadians are left paying the price. We sell almost all our oil to one customer, the U.S., because we have no pipeline to the Pacific. When will the Prime Minister stop putting political damage control ahead of the national interest and give us a date when the pipeline will be built?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Madam Speaker, the Liberal caucus is only cracking open wide enough to welcome Conservatives to come join us. My honourable colleague would like a date for a pipeline to the West Coast. How about May of last year when the Trans Mountain expansion got new Canadian products to markets, which is driving up the price of Canadian resources? The Conservatives have failed to get anything built when they were last in government because they ignored the role of provinces, because they ignored the rights of Indigenous peoples in this country. By working together with different levels of government and Indigenous rights holders, we are able to advance major projects. This is not some idea. This is our right.
The honourable member for Cloverdale, Langley City.
Madam Speaker, a pipeline to the West Coast isn't just another project. It's a nation-building decision that falls squarely under the federal government's authority. Canadians expect the Prime Minister to act, but instead, he's given the NDP Premier of BC a veto in an effort to manage the uproar in his caucus, a caucus that's now losing senior ministers over the issue. Madam Speaker, when will the Prime Minister stop passing the buck and use the federal authority that rests with him alone to ensure this pipeline gets built?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, she's talking about the constitutional authority of the Prime Minister. If she actually read the entirety of the section that she's referring to, she would notice that it also gives the constitutional authority to provincial governments to build or not build the infrastructure, the roads, the electricity, the water services that it would make possible to have a pipeline actually operate in the first place. In addition, Madam Speaker, Section 35 of that very same Constitution demands that governments respect the inherent and treaty rights of Indigenous peoples in this country, including by consulting them on advancing major projects. By working together, we can get big things done. That's a path.
The honourable member for Dartmouth Cold Harbour.
Madam Speaker, Atlantic Canada is a culture of innovation, and my riding of Dartmouth Coal Harbour is home to leading ocean technology and maritime defence researchers and innovators, many of them located strategically along the shores of beautiful Dartmouth Cove. These companies and partners are driving major advances in ocean tech and strengthening Canada's national defence and security. Can the Minister highlight the work the government is doing to support these important security and defence initiatives in Dartmouth Coal Harbour?
The Honourable Minister of Defence.
Madam Speaker, I thank this member for his work and for his advocacy for Atlantic Canadian excellence. This past weekend, we announced Canada's first Maritime Defence Innovation Secure Hub, or DISH, at Cove in Dartmouth Coal Harbour. This is a brand new $30 million hub will bring together for the first time defence and security partners, industry, academia, naval operators to develop, to test and transition new maritime technologies. Madam Speaker, from coast to coast to coast, we're investing millions in building up a resilient innovation industry right here at home.
Honourable member for Calgary, Nose Hill.
Madam Speaker, millions of Canadians don't have a family doctor, and Canada's emergency rooms are overflowing. But non-citizens who've had their asylum claims rejected are eligible for all sorts of federal health benefits that Canadians aren't, like mental health support and vision care. It's unfair to offer people with no legal reason to be in Canada better federal health benefits than Canadians have access to. Why are the Liberals giving bogus asylum claimants who have no legal reason to be in Canada access to better health services than Canadians rather than simply deporting them?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Immigration.
Madam Speaker, the member knows very well that those who are not eligible to be here will face the consequences of Canadian law, Mr. Speaker. We trust authorities to carry that out. As for services in this country, we understand that there's been a strain on services and that the immigration system has a part to play in that. What's also at stake, Madam Speaker, is that we put policy on the table to address those issues. A sustainable, responsible immigration system is exactly what we're pursuing to address those service challenges.
For Calgary, Nose Hill.
People with no legal right to be in Canada should not have access to federal health benefits. Right. Yes. The Liberals have given a Dutch Somali national who gave multiple false names and birth dates to immigration officers, have also lied about being in a polygamous marriage, yet another chance to stay in Canada. Lying to immigration officers should immediately invalidate somebody's ability to stay in Canada. The decision to let someone enter or stay in Canada should be made on truthful information. This is a no-brainer. Why are the Liberals rewarding non-citizen liars with the right to stay in Canada?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I say this with all due respect. This is the immigration critic for the Conservative Party for almost 10 years. She knows very well that when new information comes in, it can lead to the cancellation of existing visas that allow individuals to be here in the first place. And so when we understand these matters, we leave it in the hands of authorities to address those matters. On this side of the House, we are continuing to be seized with the importance of ensuring a sustainable, responsible immigration system that's focused on the economy from the beginning to end, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary, Nose Hill.
Well, in that case, the government found out that this person was a polygamist, lied about it, and still let them stay here. So, Mr. Speaker, we also this week heard the Liberals argue against my bill, which would remove the ability of activist judges and lawyers to give leniency to non-citizens convicted of serious crimes like sexual assault. And for a non-citizen, being able to stay in Canada should be considered a privilege, not a right. Non-citizens convicted of sexual assault or those who were caught lying about polygamy shouldn't be rewarded with this ability to stay in Canada. They should be removed. It's a no-brainer.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
The member is or should be aware of the landmark Supreme Court decision of 2013 that says that the courts and judges in particular can take note of the immigration status of an individual, but cannot use that to condition sentencing in a way that would avoid immigration consequences, Madam Speaker. This is not a serious question, Madam Speaker. The point is that if we're going to do immigration policy seriously in this country, we have to make sure that we allow care.
The Honourable Member for Markham Social.
Madam Speaker, Canada has what the world needs and wants. The best educated workforce in the world, free trade agreements with every G7 country, an abundance of natural resources, world-class innovators, entrepreneurs and exporters. And thanks to Budget 2025, Canada will have the lowest marginal effective tax rate in the G7. Unlike the members opposite, I'm proud to have voted in favour of a budget that will boost productivity and attract investments. Can the Parliamentary Secretary remind this House exactly what those who...
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Speaker, that the Conservatives will talk down our industries and workers every chance they get. That may help generate clicks and fundraising emails, but it won't build Canada strong. So while they're in the business of saying no, we're in the business of saying yes. Yes to productivity tax deductions for businesses. Yes to making it easier for Canadian companies to invest in machinery, equipment, and technology to help them grow and thrive. Yes to catalyzing investments to supercharge productivity in Canada. When we say yes to Canada and to Canadians, Conservatives say no. Maybe that's why Canadians keep saying no every time the Conservatives...
The honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
So every time the Prime Minister talks trade, it seems Brookfield comes out ahead and Canadians get left behind. Travels to Washington, Brookfield got an $80 billion nuclear deal. Traveled to the UK, Brookfield got money from the EU Space Agency. He hosts Swedish royalty in Canada. Brookfield announces an AI deal even before they land back in Stockholm. Now he's forcing Alberta to put money into carbon capture programs in exchange for a pipeline. And guess who has a major stake in the sector? Brookfield. Madam Speaker, when he said he would build at scale not seen in generations, did he really mean just for Brookfield?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House.
Madam Speaker, on this side of the House, count us a little perplexed as to the approach of the Conservatives in question period today. First, we have the news of 2.6% growth in our economy, which leads all published data in the G7. We signed a landmark agreement with the province of Alberta yesterday that will secure an economic future for families, for children, for people looking for jobs and an economic future across the prairies and into British Columbia. Madam Speaker, it is shameful that this Conservative Party sets up their tinfoil hats.
Honourable member for Nunavut.
This summer, a cargo ship went aground in the Franklin Strait, a rare occurrence. With climate change, the Northwest Passage has become more accessible. Nunavut relies heavily on ship diesel, and the risk of damaging the pristine waters is increasing. Mapping the seafloor will ensure more predictable navigation. Will the minister commit to funding Arctic bathymetry as a multi-use project to keep Canada's sovereignty over the Arctic?
The Honourable Government House Leader. Now, the Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Madam Speaker, with our Arctic foreign policy, we are continually ensuring that the sovereignty and the livelihood of the Arctic is protected. That is why we are putting on the table $80 billion for defense spending. In conjunction with Indigenous peoples, we are going to make sure that we protect the Arctic and we defend the Arctic, and we will do so with our international allies. I'll be traveling to NATO next week to have those.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
Behind closed doors, without BC and First Nations at the table, the Prime Minister agreed to lift the tanker ban, put at risk the way of life of coastal communities, bring in a new fossil fuel subsidy at the expense of renewable energy and clean technologies, and move Canada further away from its greenhouse gas reductions targets. The Prime Minister says they will not proceed without the consent of BC and free, prior, informed consent of First Nations. But nowhere is this spelled out in the MOU. Why?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Indigenous treaty rights do not need to be spelled out in MOUs. They are inherent. But I do want to talk a little bit about the MOU and what the MOU allows. The MOU allows us to have a durable climate plan, one that moves the effective price of carbon in Alberta from $25 to $130. It allows us to reduce methane emissions by 75%. It allows us to take carbon out of the air through carbon capture, and it does that in a way that says that there are going to be ongoing reviews to make sure those commitments towards net zero in 2050 are maintained. This is great news for the climate, and I encourage everybody in this House.
This is the end of oral questions. Affaires courantes. Affaires courantes. Dépôt de documents. Dépôt de projets de loi émanant des...
All right, so no points of order. Nobody in the mezzanine to announce. As you can see, the House is very empty on Fridays. A lot of people get upset about that. He goes, "Oh, we pay them to be in a house. Why can't they show up for work?" Well, the reality is Canada's huge. We have members from all over Canada, 343 seats, and some of these people would like to get back to their families on the weekend. So a lot of them travel. They travel back to their ridings. They have their people to represent. Some of them actually do work when they go back to their ridings. Oh, Jean-Yves Duclos. I like to call him Count Duclos. He reminds me of Le Jeune, if you're familiar with that character from Beaugest, Le Jeune. It sounds just like a character I would believe would sound like. Well, I think that was a bit of an admission there at the end that was just astounding. Let's see if I can bring that up.
Privacy and Ethics entitled Proposed Review of the Conflict of Interest Act. Official language.
Madam Speaker, expecting other related of please to
for the climate. It does that in a way 130 and what the MOU allows. The MOU allows us to have a durable climate plan, one that moves the effective price of carbon in Alberta from $25 to $130.
Oh. $25 to $130. So that $105 difference, what do you think is going to pay for that? Not the companies they're taxing. No. All that cost will be promulgated right down to the consumer, right? And that industrial carbon tax, well, that affects absolutely everything. Because everything we consume in Canada is from industry. So if you're going to tax the industry with yet another tax, they're not going to let me pay for that. They got a bottom line. Oh, do you think they're just going to say, "Oh, for the good of the planet, we'll eat our profits and pay this tax instead of passing it down to the consumer that we sell our goods to"? No, they won't. These fucking morons. Excuse my French. All right. Well, we're coming near the end. I don't think we covered much more. Oh, yes, buzzwords. Those bloody buzzwords that they use all the time. That's all we get. That's all we get from the Liberals. They will constantly accuse the Conservatives of being this and being that, when in fact they're the ones in charge of causing all the chaos and mayhem. When he said, "Why don't you give us saying you get a deal is not the plan?" Well, yeah, that's because for 10 years they've been saying you're screwing everything up. You're not building the nation. You're just spending like drunken monkeys on meth. Well, 10 years later, you've spent like drunken monkeys on meth. You've spent more money than all other prior governments combined. You can say, "Oh, it was the pandemic." No. You guys made those rules up. You didn't need to follow those rules. You didn't need to shut down all the businesses. You completely ignored the pandemic regulations and operating procedures that were already established from prior, like from SARS 2003. All those lessons learned, you threw them out the window. Why? So you could push your fraudulent big pharma product, right? Which seems to be coming up in a lot of things. So we have a lot of government overreach. We have the CFIA kill squads going out there with the help of the RCMP. And as expected, we knew that they would use the situation out west to come down on the farmers like a political ton of bricks by destroying them, because that's all they can do, right? They can't outright kill you. They will use the power of the state to financially crush you and destroy you. Because for them, it's all about power and it's all about control. But it can't all be about far left misery every single day, which is why this weekend we're starting a new show called Sci-Fi Saturdays. And on our way out, we'll just show you one of the many different versions that I set up. And then look for that tomorrow. It'll either be on this channel or it might be on its own channel. I haven't decided quite yet. I got to decide that this afternoon. And other than that, we'll see you next week on The Nap, the no answer period.
Working. I am programmed to destroy those life forms which are imperfect. Non sequitur. Your facts are uncoordinated.
decade will construction begin on a new pipeline to the Pacific?
If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth.
Yesterday from the Prime Minister really freaked these Conservatives out because they saw the ambition in that speech. And not only did they see it in that speech today, as the Prime Minister stood with the Premier,
we will take no lessons from these Conservatives. Trust me on that.
Future, they know that the youth.
The only thing that's revolting are those answers.
It is too bad that minister didn't write the Prime Minister's speech yesterday, because it wouldn't have bored and depressed to tears all of those poor students stuck in that room. There he spoke about how they would have to sacrifice more and that it would take time to reverse all of the misery that has built up over the last 10 years. Mr. Speaker, young people want to have homes. They want to have jobs. They want to have hope. They want a budget that is affordable so they can have a life that is affordable. Will the Prime Minister introduce that budget so that Canadians can restore the promise of their country?
And we decide what comes next.
Canada know that this government has their back. It will continue. There's going to be a powerful statement for the young people of Canada.
Driving inflation. The more Liberals spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. 25% of Canadians are using food banks because they can't afford to eat. So when will the Prime Minister finally get his inflationary deficits under control so Canadians can put food on the table?
Mr. Speaker, Conservative members pretend to care about food insecurity, but then they call feeding children garbage.
Mr. Speaker, what's garbage was that answer?
Did the Prime Minister see the ad before it went out?
Of course there are too many people living in poverty in Canada, but there are significant initiatives being put in place by this government.
Being serious means being honest and telling Canadians.
Canada's economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
In what year will construction begin on a new pipeline to the Pacific?
The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, the world is changing rapidly. The United States, the world's largest economy, is fundamentally reshaping all of its trade relationships, causing major disruption and upheaval for Canadians. Right. It's time to transform our economy from one that is reliant on a single trading partner to one that is stronger, more self-sufficient, and resilient to global shocks. To these ends, Canada and Alberta share the same ambitions. Diversify our export markets, make Canada an energy superpower, and build a stronger, cleaner, more independent, more competitive economy.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition. All right, he can't tell us the year in which construction will begin. Can he tell us in what decade will construction begin on a new pipeline to the Pacific?
Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, today is a really important day because we are taking important steps forward on cooperative federalism. The Prime Minister has been clear, and we've always known, we cannot reach our climate objectives if we are not working with all of the provinces and territories. Today, Alberta has committed to work with us on clean electricity regulations. They've committed in this agreement to work towards a stronger industrial carbon price. They have committed to work with us on methane regulations. Those are important steps forward for Canada to move towards its climate objectives, and we will keep doing that work.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. So they don't know the year that construction will begin. They don't know the decade that construction will begin. And the Environment Minister couldn't even bring herself to utter the word pipeline in her answer to the question. What today's deal allows a proposal for a pipeline to go to an office in 7 months, which will then be studied for 2 years, after which the Prime Minister will give a pipeline veto to the BC NDP Premier, who's already said he's against. Isn't this pipeline going to be built in the year never?
Actually, Mr. Speaker, this is a big, large, great, grand day for Canada. Our government has reached an important MOU with Danielle Smith, the Premier, and the province of Alberta that creates an energy transition in all aspects of energy. It sets the stage for an industrial transformation. It will make Canada stronger, more independent, more resilient, and more sustainable, and it will include the largest carbon capture project in the world. It will mean all of Alberta's energy resources are among the lowest energy intensive in the world.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Don't tell us when a pipeline will be under construction. Let's just unpack the Prime Minister's allusion here. He's telling the Keep It in the Ground caucus of the Liberal Party that they just need to be quiet because there won't be a pipeline anyway. What he will do is delay it for several years until after a prospective election during which he can dangle a possible pipeline in front of the people, but after which he can hand veto power that is not in the Constitution over to the BC NDP Premier, who will block the thing from ever happening. Isn't it true that this isn't a pipeline? It's a pipe dream.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the country, indeed the world, is calling out for serious leadership, for cooperative leadership, for leadership that brings people together and parties together. I don't think this leader has any conception of what is required to do the kind of development that he is proposing. Of course we will consult and deal with the Premier, the duly elected Premier of British Columbia. Of course we will and have a duty to consult with First Nations. Of course we will do this in a cooperative way. We'll do it in the Canadian way, and we'll do it in the right way, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, they will stand in the way, is what they will do. We know that the only thing stopping a pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific is the Prime Minister. Let's unpack the legality of it. The Constitution, Section 9210A, gives the federal government exclusive approval power for a pipeline. Bill C-5, a bill the Prime Minister pushed through the House of Commons, and we even supported him, gives him the power to approve it. So we only need him to do one thing for this pipeline to happen. Get out of the way. Really do it.
Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, when Canadians elected our government, they were clear. They wanted to see us build a strong Canada, and they wanted to see us build it well and build it together. They wanted to see that we could work together as a country, and that means that we do things like this agreement with Alberta that helps us move forward on industrial carbon pricing, moves forward on methane regulation, moves forward on clean electricity, but also respects other jurisdictions like the province of British Columbia, with which we must seek agreement.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
No, she accidentally told the truth, Mr. Speaker. She didn't say that it moves forward on a pipeline. She said it moves forward on an industrial carbon tax. A carbon tax that will increase the cost of everything it takes to build a home, so it's a tax on homes. On everything it takes to grow food, so it's a tax on food. It's a tax that drives production out, paychecks down, and the cost of living up. Meanwhile, it does not move forward with a pipeline. We as Conservatives believe in clearing the way to get pipelines built. In other words, we would build a pipeline without a carbon tax. They would build a carbon tax without a pipeline.
Again, Mr. Speaker, I suspect Canadians are straining to find the Leader of the Opposition credible on any of this. What this Memorandum of Understanding does is create a carbon capture and storage system that will lead the world. It will include, of course, bringing together of partners with whom we have a duty to consult and with other jurisdictions. It will create jobs in the electrical system. It will create construction jobs. It will create opportunity across Western Canada, Mr. Speaker, but most importantly will make Canada an energy superpower. Why can't the Leader of the Opposition see that?
Interest legislation when it comes to the regulations that
If the House of Commons passes Bill C9, the Combating Hate Act, Canada is going to take a step towards becoming more like the United Kingdom, where every day over 30 citizens are arrested by police over offensive tweets. Citizens are questioned by police over political commentary. We've even had a case of parents arrested in front of their own children over a private WhatsApp message. I'm urging you to contact your member of parliament today or tomorrow or this week and ask him or her to vote against Bill C9.
Please leave a brief message, and one of our staff will get back to you as soon as possible. Due to the high volume of calls you receive, messages will be responded to in order of urgency. Thank you for your understanding.
Hello, I am a constituent in the Bay of Quinte, and I would like to express my opposition to voting for bills.
It is impossible to define the emotion of hate with accuracy or precision. Bill C9 takes a stab at it by saying that hate speech is not necessarily what discredits, humiliates, hurts, or offends. Hate is not disdain or dislike. However, hate is detestation or vilification. Obviously, no clarity, no precision there that can give guidance to citizens to know if they're breaking the law or not. You can be jailed for up to 2 years for willfully promoting hatred against a group that is identifiable by its race or ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, other personal characteristics. However, it is not criminal to promote hatred against a group of people based on their profession, their means of earning a living, their social status, their wealth, their political opinions, their appearance. So we have a situation where it is criminal to willfully promote hatred against a sexual minority. It is not criminal to willfully promote hatred against Canadians who choose not to get injected with a particular vaccine. And regardless of how judges or Parliament might try to define hatred, at the end of the day, it's going to be in the discretion of the individual police officers, Crown prosecutors, and judges to decide what is hateful or not hateful. Bill C9 is very political. For example, it makes it illegal to display the Nazi swastika, but it's perfectly legal to display the communist hammer and sickle, which is the banner under which tens of millions of people were murdered in the Soviet Union, China, Cambodia, and other countries. The government's own website justifies Bill C9 on the pretext of rising anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, transphobia, and homophobia, but says absolutely nothing about the fact that dozens of Christian churches have been burned to the ground, deliberately destroyed by arson, which shows again how this is a political project. Bill C9 is going to get rid of the current requirement that the Attorney General must consent before any prosecution for hate speech proceeds. Bill C9 would get rid of that requirement, with the end result you're going to see a lot more Canadians being prosecuted for hate speech over what they say on Twitter. Bill C9 also increases the maximum penalties if someone who is convicted, if the judge feels that hate was a motivating factor in the crime, the jail time can increase from 2 years to 5 years, 5 years to 10 years, 10 years to 14 years, and 14 years to life in prison. Bear in mind that judges currently already have the power under Criminal Code Section 718 to increase punishment if the judge feels that a crime was motivated by hatred. Bill C9 is justified on the pretext of protecting access to houses of worship. But this is duplicitous because existing law already makes it illegal for any Canadian to obstruct access to any building. That's already a criminal code offense. So to say that we need a new law to protect access to houses of worship is just not true. I urge you to contact your member of parliament today or tomorrow or this week. Urge him or her to vote against Bill C9. I don't care if your MP is Liberal, Conservative, Green, Bloc, NDP. Contact your member of parliament today if you want to preserve free speech in Canada and see us not becoming like the United Kingdom. I'm John Carpe. Thanks for listening.